Welcome to another episode of Field Notes, Insights and Strategies for the Travel Marketer. My name is Eric Hulkran. On today's episode, we're talking with Kyle Stichtenoth. He is Senior Director of Digital Sales and Strategy for Advanced Travel and Tourism, and we get into everything. We get into brand, we get into travel intent, and of course, we're going to talk a little bit about AI and the modern traveler. As I said, our guest today from Advanced Travel and Tourism, our home state, if you will. Kyle, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. It's a good day, Eric. The sun is shining and looking forward to good things to come.
For people who are tuning into this podcast for the first time, they don't know you, they don't know me, they're learning both of us. But for you, how long have you been with Advanced Travel and Tourism, and kind of what is your role?
So I started with the company actually in 2010. So it's been almost a 15-year journey for me now. The Advanced Travel and Tourism brand started 10 years ago, and I worked in a supporting role for that brand, but really took the helm of it about a year and a half ago and have been driving the ship through some fun and exciting waters since then.
In that, year and a half, and obviously 9 years on top of that, what has the industry been like in the last 18 months, and what are the biggest changes? Don't say AI. I'm just kidding. You can totally say AI. But what have been the biggest changes you've seen in the industry?
Well, I think we've seen a lot of things change since COVID. COVID was a huge changer for the industry, and it changed the way people traveled. And it also changed the way destinations had to market why people should travel there. So that was a big change. And of course, after that came a lot of government funding that helped a lot of destinations do a lot of things in the marketing space that maybe they hadn't done before. And you mentioned AI, right? That's changed some things. Social has blown up even more. So those are really, some of the big changes there. We see a lot more focus on sort of drive traffic. What's a day trip like, and how do you turn day trips into weekend trips, right? Because the overnights is where most of the DMOs are going to get their real revenue from. So that's one of the big challenges. It's, hey, we're 3 hours away, but we really got 2-3 days worth of stuff here that you can come and have a really great experience with.
Now, there was a survey out this morning that I read. I'll put it in the show notes if everyone wants to check it out themselves. And what's interesting about what you're saying is it's showing year over year. So 24 to 25, the intent is they want to stay longer. We're going from, I think, 8 days to 10 days. But the interesting thing was summer travel is up, which seems interesting that it's up in double digits, 11% intent for summer travel. I want to get your thoughts on that. But the other one that I thought was fascinating is the 2025 intent is moving from coastline to inland. There's more intent to go inside than to ocean. And I'm wondering, A, if you've seen anything like that, and perhaps if you're a DMO that is inland, how do you take advantage of that?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because the pendulum definitely swings, right? And we saw increases in lodging rates in the years immediately following COVID. And the trend there was, hey, we're not going to Europe. We're not doing cruises. We're not doing the big things. So there was a lot more domestic automobile travel, if you will. And actually, some of our partners have seen a decline over the last year. And it's not like it's bad news. It's just record highs is what we were seeing in the aftermath of COVID. So it's not a doom and gloom story by any stretch of the imagination, but we have seen people say, hey, okay, we watched our budgets. We did more conservative travel. Now we go big. And that was probably a trend for last year, which could be influencing why people are saying, hey, I went to Italy last year, right? The conditions and the circumstances were right. Now we're gonna go check out some theme parks in the U.S., or we're gonna check out some historical sites or some national parks, right? So that checks out to me for sure. I think we're seeing that. Now you also asked, what can destinations do to take advantage of that, right? And I think it's provide itineraries, right? Here's a perfect 36 hours in XYZ location. You've got to make it easy for people to one-click plan the trip. And I know a lot of destinations are using AI generating tools to build custom itineraries for people. So, but that's the easiest thing. You market that you got it, you make it easy for them. And now all of a sudden it's like, hey, family, here's the easy trip we can take that we're all going to have a lot of fun with.
So Kyle, I love all of this, and the thing that I love is this: the two things: the idea of the itinerary that I want to get to in a second, and the idea of cyclicality. And so I often have this philosophy in marketing that it's always someone's first day at church. It's why the Easter story and the Christmas story are identical for the last 2,000 years, right? Because it's always somebody's first day. So as a DMO, if you're in this cyclicality and maybe you've done 1.5 million itineraries, you're like, oh, if I have to do one more itinerary. But the thing is, you've got to do one more itinerary. Any thoughts on how to keep that itinerary tactic fresh so that the people making them are as excited about the people who see them for the first time?
Yeah, I actually have a really good take on this, I think. And it pairs well with the advocacy that needs to happen in your local communities. So when you're building out itineraries, you're going to have a couple star locations, star attractions that are going to drive people. And being able to shift the focus of those itineraries from those local star attraction points that you have does two things. It makes those attractions feel good about you and your marketing efforts to promote and support them. But it also allows you to put a different lens on what those itineraries can be, right? So if you're in Kentucky, I know you're a big bourbon guy, right? They obviously have a bourbon trail and bourbon guides, but maybe it's Heaven Hill this time, maybe it's a different one next time, right? Maybe instead of leading with a bourbon one, maybe you lead with caves or historical sites or the natural beauty of things. And so you're able to, if you think about it, like what's the thumbnail image that comes on a video, right? Well, you can switch that up and lead with a different element that then allows you to take your marketing efforts and target a segment that might be more interested in that element too, right? So that's the way you keep it fresh and then also keep your stakeholders happy at home.
Survey this morning that I was referring to also said that, and this will be no surprise to you, but I want to get your take on this. 53% of Americans are using AI to travel this year. And we've crossed, it very much felt like at CES this year, we've crossed over this threshold. Last year, AI was a thing. Is it going to stick around? Do I need to learn it? What do I need? And now it's clearly a thing. I mean, I don't know how nerdy you got about CES, but for me to know that last year we were talking about AI and ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity, this year we're now talking about quantum computing. It feels like marketing's going very, very quickly for all of us. Yes. But when you've got 53% of travelers in the United States using AI either a lot or checking it out, what should a DMO do to sort of reverse engineer that and put their mind as the traveler who's going to pick up that device and ask it, to your point, ask it, which distillery do I go to? And perhaps you might not even have a chance to influence it.
I love where your head's at on this because you're right. The big talk at conferences was, hey, AI's here, right? You have to use AI. And now we're getting into more of the practical applications. And then what does it mean for you? I was listening to somebody talk, and they were talking to some Silicon Valley tech bro type people and saying that AI is, if you think about the internet compared to AI, it's like 1985, 1990, right? And like, if you think about where we are now, that's a huge place to go.
Yep.
But to answer your question, I think this mirrors a little bit of how we approached the trend around long tail search keywords not that long ago, right? You have to write and create content as somebody would ask an AI about what to do and where to go. So, because AI is effectively just a search engine, right? That's what it is. It's pulling from data here. But the way people are going to type in or ask the AI what they want or where they want to go is going to evolve and change. So being more mindful and intentional to think about how do humans research and look and try to find things. It's, SEO has changed so much from like, here's my keywords and I'm just going to stuff them in everywhere and hope that works. And I like to kind of talk about how, technology has graduated from kindergarten to grade school to high school to college now, and it's got a much more in-depth comprehension of what you have on your websites and what people are looking for, right? So it's no longer see, spot, run. It's, let's talk about all the different Pantones that are out there for brown and like it's getting nuanced. So you have to write content and think about it from that lens of, okay, real humans are looking for real answers and we need to provide quality, in-depth, thoughtful content that aligns with that.
Now, Kyle, you and I have both done this job in various forms and functions for a minute, but as people can tell, we clearly have a passion in this space and are very curious about what is behind door number 7 or door number 8 or door number 12, right? And I love asking this question because everybody has a different answer, but I'm wondering, Kyle, if you could give me maybe some form around how you stay curious about this space and you can feel your energy, right? Like you're very curious and you're very passionate about this. And I think for DMO marketers or CVBs or wherever you are in the travel space, this becomes the defining factor that allows you to kind of exist on into perpetuity if you're curious. And wondering if you kind of have ever thought about what makes you curious and how do you kind of wrangle that?
Well, as a kid, I'm sure you were the kid that never quit asking questions. Well, why? Why is the sky blue? Why does this happen, right? So like some of us are just born that way. But I think you have to create time and intentionality for that, right? It's so easy to just get stuck in task to task to task to task. And if you do that, you burn out and you don't have the creative space in your mind to be able to engage and think about content and read and really let your mind think about, okay, well, if this is true, then what does that mean for this over here, right? So I think the key to curiosity and creativity and thinking about what comes next is allowing yourself time to do that and being an open-minded about what you see, what you hear, listening, and then pausing to think, okay, I hear that. That was cool, but now what?
Do you have a sense in your day to day, like how much time you're setting aside to do the thinking part? Because I think that's the key,
Not
right?
enough.
Is like, well, no, I mean, all jokes aside, right? Like you're building sort of a meditation into your workday so that you can go, hey. Like the example I've been using because I'm fascinated by it is like, okay, so Coors Light puts up a misspelled billboard in
Yeah,
Times Square
brilliant.
to launch an LTM, a limited time offer case of beer, right? And then my brain immediately goes, there was a meeting about how to misspell that word.
Yeah,
What was that meeting like and why did they pick that way?
yeah.
And you've got to set some time aside to sit down and go, here was the problem. We already have the solution. It's the case of the Monday's beer, but like how did they do that? And so do you have any sense of like an audit of your time of like how much time you're just kind of dedicating to look around and go, huh?
Well, that's the beautiful thing about social media is it allows for what people have labeled micro learning, right? Where you can, boom, TikTok, you follow some of the right people and whatever platforms you're looking at. And 10 minutes isn't a waste of time doing nonsense. It's really cool ideas that stimulate you and make you think about things. I love that Coors Light billboard. And what my favorite part about this was the way people had an instant visceral reaction of, oh my God, they screwed up.
Yep.
And my girlfriend and I, we both work in marketing, and we were like, no, no, this is the attention they're getting right now is exactly what they wanted. And sure enough, right? I mean, but you have to think differently than everybody else. You asked earlier, like, what can DMOs and places do to gain more attraction? Everybody's telling the same story, Eric. It's, hey, we've got great shopping and great restaurants and a vibrant nightlife and cool. Like everybody's telling a similar story. How can you do it different? How can you be a disruptor in that space? And Coors Light's an example of how to do that. So, like, think about everything that everybody else is doing, and then how can we do that differently, right? And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but at least you're going to stand out and be recognizable to some extent.
Kyle, when I say this sentence to you, how important is it for DMOs to understand and execute consistently on brand?
Oh gosh, it's so important. And people don't understand what brand means, right? They think brand is my color scheme and my logo and my name. And your brand is how people feel about you when they see you. And that is a consistency in storytelling. And I love to use the analogy of Geico Insurance, right? What Geico Insurance stands for Government Employee Insurance Company, but nobody knows that, right?
Sure. Yeah.
One thing you know about Geico is 15 minutes saves you 15%, right? That's their brand. Their brand is nothing else, right? So as a destination, like your brand can't just be your name. It has to be what you have, how you want people to feel, what the experience is. You're communicating a story, a feeling, an emotion, and it isn't just a name. So if you're doing ads out there that just say your name, you're doing it wrong.
My friend, this has been a blast. Thank you for the time. We will most certainly have you back on.
Cheers, my friend. It was good. Enjoy your weekend.